Hang tight, stand by.
All right, it's 6 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. We have two directors on Zoom this evening, so they are joining us electronically. And I believe tonight we do not have any public comment pertaining to the agenda. Is that correct, Christine?
That is correct. We had two submissions, but they were non-agenda related. And so as per the instructions of the agenda, those will be held to a later time.
All right, thank you. So we will move ahead to our action item, and for that, Steve Emmert will take it away.
Good evening, Board Chair Hawken, Dr. Lyon, and Board of Directors. Tonight, we want to present proposals from three superintendent search firms, and I'll briefly speak just to what we thought might be some pros and cons of each. The first one is Human Capital Enterprise, which is owned and led by Hank Harris. In terms of the pros, we know Hank and he does an amazing job and does a lot of searches for large districts. He's currently doing the search for Portland Public. He's done Beaverton, Salem Kaiser, a lot of districts throughout the state. I think he is currently doing the search for Forest Grove. We know that the search would be conducted by a highly qualified team, and we have confidence that the applicant pool would be robust if we hired that search firm. They conduct regular nationwide searches for large districts. The concerns we would have, I think, are that their process really is too long for our circumstances. They've indicated that they're fairly overloaded with searches at this time, especially with Portland Public taking just a lot of time. And we do not know who would be assigned to our search. The second one is OSBA. And the cost of Hank's search, by the way, a Capital Human Enterprise would be anywhere from $18,900 to $34,500, just depending on, when I talk to him on the phone, it's really dependent on the number of services they provide for the district. The second one is OSBA. They have just a flat cost of $15,750. The pros with OSBA are that the search would be conducted by Milt Dennison, who's been an Oregon Southwest Washington educator since the 70s. He's been around for a long time. They're really the best firm to generate Oregon applicants because they do statewide searches in Oregon and Oregon only. They've indicated they'll work with us to accommodate a shortened timeline without compromising a comprehensive recruit of candidates. They seem to have more flexibility to move at our pace. They offer opportunities for plenty of board, staff, and community input and involvement. And they continue working with the district following the hire, doing some training for the superintendent and the board. And I noticed a couple of other things that they offer. We really, as we read through that proposal, didn't see any what we would consider to be cons with OSBA. And then the third firm is McPherson and Jacobson. They are also a very highly qualified search firm. They're affiliated, or Mike Scott is affiliated with them, the former superintendent in Hillsborough, and he's well respected in the area. We have confidence that the applicant pool would be robust. They have, if you look through their packet, a very clear and thorough process. They screen applicants and pre-interview, then send the board qualified candidates, which can be, I guess, a pro or a con. You don't do the screening yourself. They do that for you. But if you, maybe sometimes you want to do the screening, and they've already done that. They also continue working with the district following the hire. The potential cons with McPherson and Jacobson would be that we're uncertain as to who the person would be who'd be assigned to our district. And then their process also, as we read through the packet, is likely too long for our timeline, but something to consider. All three firms are highly qualified, I think, to conduct a thorough search for Sherwood. The board wouldn't go wrong with selecting really any of the three firms. There are a few things that distinguish OSBA maybe from the other two. One is they've indicated that they would accommodate our timeline. Secondly, we know Milt Dennison would be assigned to the search, so we know who our consultant would be. And that's the only one that did name their consultant. And then the third is OSBA is likely to generate the deepest Oregon-specific applicant pool. When we look back at the hires in Sherwood for the last 3 or 4 superintendents, maybe farther back, they've all been Oregon or Tex Oregonian. And so that has served us well in our district. They, again, are Oregon only. The other 2 are multi-state search firms, so something to consider. With everything that we read, the administration's recommendation would be that the board would utilize OSBA to conduct the superintendent search this spring. But that is for you all to discuss. So at this time, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, I'll just open it up for questions. I'm gonna start with one, and then I know since you both are electronic, it's sometimes hard to know who's queuing in, but just start speaking if you want to ask a question, I guess. One question, I did not realize by reading through the proposals that OSBA was Oregon only, so it's not a nationwide search, it's just people currently in Oregon?
I believe they have
Yeah.
searched. I believe they have searched mainly the western states. I think they've gotten out of Oregon before. I think it's typically mainly an Oregon search firm. Jeremy, you can maybe speak to that.
Yeah, no, thank you. That is a great question, and that's a little bit of a confusion point there. OSBA immediately, as do the other 2 search firms, plug into all of the executive search posting sites nationwide, beginning with the Superintendent's Association, Education Week. So OSBA, as well as the other 2, utilize all of the usual sources to attract superintendent candidates nationwide. OSBA is linked to other school boards associations in every state. And so all the Ohio superintendency openings can be seen through the Texas Association of School Boards and the Oregon School Boards Association. So the school boards associations do a nationwide posting. And so it is a nationwide search. By what we were talking about there in regards to Oregon specific, OSBA is the only one that regularly interfaces with all 200 school districts in Oregon every year, year in and year out. So they know the Oregon superintendent landscape better than these 2 other search firms. I think that's a fair statement. Those search firms might argue that, but OSBA certainly has the reach across the state.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I just piggyback on, not to interrupt you, Abby and Jeremy, but yes, what I read from OSBA in that proposal was that they did, as you illustrated perfectly, reach out nationwide. So yes, good point of clarification. Thank you.
I just wanted to point out, on the history list, and this, I'm in pro or con, but it is, these districts are smaller in size that they tend to service. And they have listed Sherwood on the 2022 of helping to find our interim superintendent. And really, you get very rural and smaller districts, and I'm just putting the question out there. Is that fair to Sherwood at this point in its size? Just throwing that out there. Not that they don't do a good job, but why aren't the other larger districts using OSBA instead of third-party search firms?
I mean,
Well,
honestly,
I tried to search through that too in their previous lists in the last 5 years, looking for a larger population. And I did see a few, but I agree they have more numbers, but smaller. But I did see a few of the larger, but the Starlight school districts are, Tiger Tualatin, Wilsonville, Lake Oswego, Portland, and they're not on there. But I don't have a feeling one way or the other that matters. But I think it's a great question, Harmony.
Krista, did you have something you wanted to say?
Hans just said it for me. We
Yeah,
are thinking alike.
if I'm being really truthful, it was really hard for me to compare these 2. The other one looked like it was, in my opinion, clearly out of the picture because the range was so much longer. But these two were similar in cost. OSB, I think, was cheaper, but then it had an additional fee for travel, lodging. It said to prepare for it to be up to half the cost of the search, which could be up to like $7,000, but it also said typically it's more like 2 or 3 in addition. So it went through that pretty clearly. So they were pretty neck and neck with like cost. It seemed like, I understand we do have somebody through OSB. Have you guys ever worked with Milton? Yes, maybe.
Only as a colleague,
Okay,
back in the day.
okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Abby, did you finish with your questions? Because I have a couple of comments.
Oh,
but-
no, go ahead.
we-
I'm just processing.
Yeah, I mean, we're asked to be doing a lot here and I'm certainly no expert at this, but as far as just the presentation of the proposals go, they were quite different in the way they approached us. And I think everyone's aware of that, but I was impressed with OSBA as far as the way they presented their proposal, the inclusivity of it, the quirkiness of it, so to speak. But they were being honest, and I really appreciate it. I was left a little lackluster with the other two. Like if you're asking me to decide between those other two, well, I think the one out of state one is at McPherson. Is the out of state one McPherson? Steve, can you clarify? I don't have it in front of me.
Yes, it is.
Is the out of state? I'm just gonna say right now, thumbs down to them. Out of state, they don't know Oregon, so my personal bias there. But I was a little lackluster with the other two, the way they approached us, myself, all of us as a board, as we need some help here, and this is what I got. Other than OSBA, so for what it's worth.
I do want to point out on the McPherson bid, the representatives in that bid are Oregon superintendents, previous, a lot of Washington County ones, to be honest. Gus Balderas, and then Mike Scott, and then Don Grotting is actually a longtime superintendent from Oregon. He was in NISA and Beaverton and David Douglas for a long time, and he ranks right up there with Dr. Lyon. He is one of my all-time favorite superintendents on the planet. And I see that he was just hired by McPherson in 2022 as a consultant. And so my question earlier today was, are we able to ask, I don't know who Steve Lauder is. I'm not familiar with Steve as our regional director, and I don't know if we would be working like closely just with him, but my question is, could we request Don Grotting as our contact? He's a phenomenal superintendent who just retired from Oregon. So I guess that's my only question is like, do we have to stick with the people they're telling us that we are assigned to? And I don't know that answer.
we're not assigned.
Right. Well, I mean, as regional director for McPherson, I don't know if, you know. Yes, I did see that. He was just here though. I did see that.
Mike? Yeah, so I guess we don't really know the answer for sure of who we would get through that company. And I agree that they had two different totally appeals, the proposals did. Like OSBA, it did feel like they were trying to be more tailored to what we wanted, more of a boutique approach. They wanted to get feedback and they wanted to kind of tailor it really more around what we were wanting for our community. But I did notice the same thing that you did, Harmony, that they tended to represent smaller, more rural districts. But I also don't always think that's bad. Like, sometimes you hire a brand new teacher and people are like, oh, they're brand new. And then it's like the best teacher in the entire staff because they're ready to go and they're fresh and they want to take on something newer and bigger. And so it's not necessarily bad either. And so I don't think we're going to go wrong with either one of them, but I think we just need to weigh out which we all feel strongly about and then vote and move forward with one. And I think really it's more going to matter how we move through that process, and it's going to matter which firm we choose. Truthfully, I think they're both going to serve us well.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say with all due respect, Harmony, to your position, I would be an absolute unequivocal no on Don Grotty representing our search. He was very loud several years ago. There was some unethical things that he did. You can Google it. It was in the news a lot, and he doesn't have my respect, and I would not want him in charge of finding our next superintendent.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, I just want to put it out there so that, I mean, if we're discussing it, right, like, that's gonna be a no from me.
Yeah, we clearly have very different takes on that.
Not to complicate things, but, and this is purely a board decision. You have to consider the speed at which you want the search. And there's no doubt about it that selecting the two private firms, McPherson and Jacobson, or Human Capital Enterprises, that will take us into the month of May. There is nothing wrong with that, but you just have to realize that they're going to move slower through this process, be more deliberate. Part of the thinking on this is to align our search with current search openings in our area. And that is one advantage of looking at OSBA is, I like that word boutique. They can formulate a calendar that more matches up with the current searches in our area than the other two firms could. But make no mistake, all three of these firms have very specific Oregon people who would be tapped to work with us, and they all three are qualified. But that speed is something that definitely needs to be looked at. How much time do you want to spend on this search?
Did you want to say something?
I just wanted to just give my opinion, I guess. I think that, both these firms I think would be good. I mean, they both seem solid. OSBA just seems like a safer bet, mainly just because of the speed. We know who Milt Dennison is, so we already know who the consultant is, so we know that. I know we know that they're gonna obviously know Oregon, so I think that's a positive. I get the concern that they're representing more rural districts perhaps, but I mean, I don't necessarily see that as a negative at all. I mean, I think rural districts and big districts, they all need highly qualified people just the same. So I don't see a problem with that. I see no negatives with OSBA. The only negative I see with McPherson is potentially we don't know who we're gonna get, so that's a risk. And if the timeline is a little bit longer, that's a potential risk. So that's how I guess I see it.
I guess my only reservation about OSBA is the talent pool that's in Oregon for up and coming superintendents. And with so many openings, are there enough to go around, and are we gonna find the best one essentially for our district with the crop?
OSBA will track nationally.
They're searching nationwide. They're not just searching in Oregon.
Got it.
Unless I read that wrong, but
You're right.
No, yeah, you're correct. I misspoke earlier. I had read that wrong, actually.
Okay, well, I think now, especially because there are a lot of things I actually did like with this McPherson proposal, but I'm much more hesitant to move that direction now, just because I feel like nervous about what consultant we would be assigned and what that dynamic might be, and can we all agree, and does it look right? So that's one reason that I'm going to suggest that we move forward with OSBA. But speaking to the whole speed thing, I want to be very clear. I want to make sure we get this done quickly, in the sense that we get the posting out quickly and that we start our search quickly so that we can be in alignment with other postings in the area. But obviously, I want us as a board to take the time that's needed to find the right person. So I don't want that to come across like I'm in such a hurry to start it and finish it, but I am in a hurry to get it started. I want to make sure that we really give it, you know, thorough effort, that we work with our community, that we really take the time to have important conversations. And I think that we will, regardless of who we choose. But just to be sure, I'm not in a hurry to finish it, but I am in a hurry to get it started. And so, I think with all things considered, I would like to motion that we choose OSBA to conduct our superintendent search, for our next superintendent.
I'll second that motion.
I don't normally make a motion, so I'm gonna ask if there's any other discussion. No?
Yeah, one
Yeah.
thing, I'm sorry, I
Go
cut
for it.
off the first and the second. And I apologize, I didn't see all the McPherson things, so I went back and read it all. So yes to glitching that. I would like to piggyback on two things. One, I think we as a board really need to maybe breathe a minute. Maybe I'm giving everybody a chance to breathe and say, we really support this decision as a first step. And I hear some sharp comments and appropriate comments about a McPherson. So I think that illustrates to me like, okay, is there a suitable compromise, so to speak? OSBA is good, McPherson's good, but there's some sharp criticism about McPherson, and duly respected. Different opinions, we want those. So having said that, I will leave that for now, but I agree with Abby. Time is of the essence, but also moving quickly, I agree 100% with, but taking the time to do it right affords the opportunity to do it right. So I don't want to rush it personally, but I do want to get it going. I agree with that premise. So in that, I will pass it back to if it's appropriate. I'm done with additional comments. Thank you.
It's always appropriate. It's totally fine. Okay, so we have a first and second, so I'm just gonna ask all those in favor of choosing OSBA for our search firm, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries 5-0. Good job, guys. That wasn't terrible for us. Okay. The next special meeting of the board will be held on March 6, 2024. The next regular business meeting of the board will be held on March 20th. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Thank you.